We're just getting started a couple minutes early, checking in, just trying to make sure that everything's working well. It's our first time using a new platform to stream from, so a little nervous. I figured I'd start a couple minutes early. So if you're out there, give me a hello, please, so I know this is working. I can see it pop up in comments. And we've got some really good questions that people wrote in ahead of time, so we're gonna be taking a look at those in a moment. Yeah. Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Patricia. It's good to hear from you. I'm going to go ahead and everybody's going to laugh. I'm finally that age now. Guess what? I got the readers. And it's really cool. It's amazing. Wow, the Facebook comments do pop up in the new platform. I love that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with a few of the questions that came through. First question that came through from Alicia. Why does my puppy go crazy right before bed? That's a really good question. Puppies get a thing called the zoomies, at least I call it the zoomies. And I've seen it happen at various times of day. So I don't know that the why is necessarily important. Like they have energy and they want to get that energy out. And basically, my advice on puppy zoomies is if you can redirect your puppy towards something else, that's a good thing. So if they go into zoomies and it was not at a predictable time, I might always have a few treats or something on me that I can like toss a confetti party and get them going with hunting maybe for some food. And it might be a good sign then to like, if you can get them outside, make sure that they have been able to relieve themselves. They don't have that going on. And then you give them a chew toy or a chew bone or a puzzle toy that will keep them mentally active, right? They can put that energy into a good mental activity. If you can predict it and you know that you've already done some good mental stimulation work and you've done good exercise and they just tend to have a zoomie at a certain time of day, then I would be preemptive about that. So what it means is I might work on my remain on place, or I might have their leash on and be doing a behavioral down so I can head that zoomie off at the pass so it doesn't become a habit. So that's the zoomie question. Okay, let's see, what other questions do we have? Oh, okay, this came in from Tony. 4-month-old puppy, how do we stop the biting of our hands and jumping on people? She treats us the way she plays with her mother. All right, well, so there's a couple of pieces of this. If she's playing roughly with her mother, then I would probably, from my perspective, I would probably start to manage that play a little bit. And I would start to put a little bit of a boundary on how energetic and heavy that play gets, which means that I would interrupt the play, basically, put both dogs in a timeout, would be a good thing if it hits a place where it's real bitey stuff. And I also would make sure, especially because you have a female and she's playing this way with her mother. So I'm assuming that both dogs are in the same household. Just remember this: puppies get a puppy pass. But as that little female puppy that you have gets older, her mother may not have the same patience with her. And then what you have are two females vying for control in the household. So all the more reason for you to make sure that you're getting in there and refereeing the play and not letting them get too rough with each other. So that's the first piece of it. And again, if you're starting to put a boundary on that play, then it will carry over better to how she's treating you. The biting of your hands and the jumping on people, there's some questions I have about that. Is it when you're sitting on the floor? If it is, you're inviting play. So if you're sitting on the floor, I would have a toy, a tug toy or a ball or something, or squeaky toy, and I'd be playing with her. If you're not playing with her or doing a specific handling exercise, we have a few handling exercises in our curriculum where you do kneel on the ground and do some handling. If you're not doing one of those things, then you shouldn't be sitting on the floor. You're inviting that type of mouthing, right? Now, if it's happening when you're walking and she's jumping up to grab your hands, for me, I would utilize a spray bottle. You don't want to use it as a gun, so you're not going to point it like that. I'd have it set on a stream, and I would keep it very close to my body, and I would just spray a little boundary so that if she comes in that area and starts to jumping, there's a little bit of a spray that happens. And then when she stops, you keep walking, and you can calmly, if you excitedly praise it, you're going to make her jump again. So you can calmly praise the fact that she stopped jumping. And then if I had a few pieces of food, which you should always have on you as a puppy parent, I would drop them on the floor. So then you're also reinforcing for on the floor. And I would handle jumping on people the same way. The only thing is I would make sure that if it's people she doesn't know well, that I'm handling interactions appropriately. I don't want to necessarily get on a puppy a lot with a spray bottle while they're meeting someone new that they don't know. So in that situation, I would make sure that the person that she's meeting stays calm. That person shouldn't be like, "Oh, you're such a cute puppy." That person needs to be neutral. If they can kneel on the ground and get to the puppy's level to pet your puppy, that would be better than standing up and towering over them, because oftentimes we don't bend enough and we actually invite the puppy to jump without realizing it. If it's a more elderly person that can't kneel down like that, have them sit in a chair before you allow the greeting. And then the other thing I do is I cut treats really, really small, like confetti. I'll like crumble up bacon, something really, really tiny, a little bit of chicken breast that I just like basically you can crumble it up. So, you get like stringy and chop it real small, and you can sprinkle that on the floor. And so what's happening is while that initial greeting is happening, her feet again are being reinforced for being on the floor. She's kind of eating a few of the treats, and then she can get petted and then also paid food from the person that is you're focusing on having her greet. So that would be like my first round of handling the jumping situation. The other thing to be said about that is when you first have people coming in the house, your puppies don't have a bunch of impulse controls. So I let my puppy oftentimes chill out in their crate. I get people in after they've been in for a while, then I let my puppy out. And again, I still use food. I still use proper greeting from the person that they're meeting, right? But I want to make sure that I've allowed a little bit more calm rather than just the excitement of the front door, which is going to feed all of that jumping and mouthing. The other thing to make sure is that you're reading your puppy right, because I don't necessarily want someone greeting a puppy who is in a fear period. If your puppy's a little tentative or fearful, don't push the greeting. Just allow your puppy to be neutral around that person. Make sure, again, you're dropping a lot of food for their puppy, and the person needs to be neutral to your puppy. Just ignore them and let them feel comfortable around a being while they're in this kind of fear stage. You don't want to press having a bunch of people feed them, because it's not going to change how they feel inside. They're going to have to deal with the social pressure that they're maybe a little fearful of in that fear period to get the food. And that's not a good thing. So just a little advice there. Sally has a really great question. How to know when puppy biting is excessive versus normal? Well, my joke answer to this is, do you have a Malinois? right? Because what's normal for a Malinois may not be normal for, a Bichon, right? But all joking aside, there's a lot more in that question. To me, puppy mouthing is a pretty normal thing, but how we handle it decides the outcome, right? So I'm not going to do things that exacerbate it or invite it. And I'm going to be very, what's the word? I'm going to be very matter of fact in how I deal with it. So oftentimes people make the mistake when a puppy starts biting or mouthing, they whip their hands away, right? And there's actually some really bad advice on the internet about go and move away, right? Well, then you've shown a puppy that teeth on flesh can make things happen. They can make their human into a giant squeaky toy. So that's not my go-to for handling puppy mouthing or biting. I prefer to push in and kind of have my hand go dead, right, and push into them. And what they learn is like they can't make it move, they can't have a bunch of fun on it, and it's really pretty boring. Now, how to know when it's excessive versus normal? I would need to know more about the situation. Again, what breed, what age, are they drawing blood? Have we needed stitches, right? Like that's information that I would need to answer that more effectively. Is it happening in response to something like over a resource, or is it just excited mouthing because they want to play? In any case, at the end of the day, it's always what is acceptable or comfortable for the person that has to live with that puppy and eventually as it becomes a dog. So I would, if you have more information, Sally, you can type some more comments in and I'll try to respond a little more to your question. But there's always a certain amount of mouthing that is normal, but we don't feed into it, right? We're going to do whatever we can to even extinguish that. So those are some good questions. And actually, I'm going to break for a moment on here, and I can actually play there's a video I think that might help in showing you what I mean when I say I kind of push back into a puppy when they're mouthing, right? So I'm going to do a quick screen share. And let's see, hopefully, if this will show up for you guys. Let me get this video up. It could be pretty cool to do this. Let me do a screen share. Okay. So this is my Caedmon when he was really young. And this was like during a nail clipping. I was starting to teach him about nail clipping, right? So we're going to go ahead and see if this screen share works. Oh, it looks like it does. Look at that. Oh, it's so cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start playing that video for you guys so that you can see what I do when a puppy starts to grab me a little bit, right? Let's see, good play, puppies. And here's the nail clipping. So I just got to hit play and then we should be able to watch this.
That's the camera. I know.
Look at this.
I know.
Okay. So,
come here, buddy. We're gonna clip your nails.
Let's take a peek at this.
Come here, puppy. Hey, then. I know. Coso for mommy. I know. It's a good boy. We're gonna clip
He
your
was
nails.
about
good boy, huh? You're such a good
5.5,
huh?
6 months old there.
I know. Settle.
And so let's take a peek at what you're going to see is,
okay?
in a moment,
All
he's
right.
going to get a little goobery.
Okay, good boy. Good puppy. Good boy.
He's so busy.
Okay, good boy. Easy, easy.
So see, when he starts grabbing onto me,
easy.
I get more calm, right? When he starts
Easy.
getting a little grabby and fidgety.
No, you're being silly. Come on now. Settle.
I never whip my hands away from him. And the mistake that a lot of people would make in that situation, novice handlers, is they start to whip their hands away. And then that Malinois learned I can make my human a toy, right? Like that can be a lot of fun. And you see how nice and calm he is now, letting me get that clipping in. So all from me not whipping my hands away, but kind of being very neutral and kind of going dead with my hands and leaning more into him. Okay, so hopefully that helps you with a little bit of how I would handle that. also, while we're in this screen share situation, I also want to back up to the question that that Tony asked about, like, jumping on people, and she treats us the way she plays with her mother. I'd like to show you a little bit of what I consider to be proper play. And if you're seeing something more than this or different than this, again, I would probably get in there and intervene a little bit. I like a give and take in play. I'm just pulling up the video now so we have it ready to go. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and switch this out. And let's look at this little bit of give and take that we can have. This is from when Cademan he was about 4 months old, and Aries is in this video. And Aries was a master at showing puppies how to play, at helping them feel comfortable, and at really showing them that it's not about winning or losing. It's really enjoying the game of playing, right? So here we go. Let's look at this. So if you notice, Aries went on his tummy for the puppy, right? And Cademan's there's a little give and take, but no one is really grabbing each other or biting hard on each other, right? Like, Aries understands my boundaries with that, and it's really just nice, gentle play. He's taught Cademan, let's just play, let's have fun. I don't know of many powerful Schutzhund 3 dogs that would actually get on their back for a puppy, right? These powerful males. He's just like, and then when Cademan gets to be a little bit too much of a brat there, right? Aries got up and was like, woo. And look at that. That was a really, really cool play bow there that he gave, that Cademan gave, right? Because he's learning, oh, it's about play. It's not about beating up on each other. So that's really cool. And then what I want to show you is how the roles reverse. So there's just always this beautiful give and take, but we're going to look at a video from this past winter. And now, Cademan is 3 years old and Aries was 12 in this video. And you're going to see how now Cademan was more than willing to get on his back for Aries, which I think is adorable. So we're going to go ahead and show that, because I think it's really, really cool to see the progression and how they can learn from each other and how things end up down the road, right? It's one thing for me to say, oh, it was really great that they were playing well when Cademan was a puppy, but what happens when they're both adults, right? So I'm just pulling up the video now. So this was just, I grabbed it. This was out in Delaware. Unexpectedly, one morning they were doing this, and I thought, oh, this would be really cool to get this on video, and I'm so glad I did. But here we go. So we've got a screen share going on now. So this is when the play goes well, right? And they've had a good life together. Again, Cademan now in this video is 3 years old. And he's actually the guy on the ground. And he was actually on his back for Aries. And they're kissing, right? And so now he's doing what Aries was doing in the other video. So that's just my take on, again, making sure that play doesn't get too rough, that interactions are fair, and that the dogs learn that it's about the enjoyment of the interaction and not who wins or loses, right? Okay, so hopefully seeing that is helping a few people. Another question that we got on our questions that came in. What is the best way to introduce my puppy to my older dogs? So we're going to dovetail right into that. I think the first thing to make sure that we do is understand our role in when they do start to play, managing it. So we just addressed that in the first question I answered today, and then in some of these videos. But in general, how do we introduce? For me, I like to start it all happening around the place bed. So when I have a new puppy come in the house, all the veterans in the house are like, okay, we know the drill. Everybody gets on a place bed. I go ahead and I put the puppy on a place bed and I give everyone a marrow bone. And they're all about 6 to 10 feet apart. And what happens is the moment I give them their marrow bones and I put the puppy on his place bed with a marrow bone, the adults stop for a moment and they watch the puppy, because the puppy generally hops off the bed. And what my veterans are waiting for is what's mom gonna do? And the moment that puppy hops off, I just calmly say, and I pick him up and I put him back on the bed. And that might go a couple times. And then eventually the puppy settles in and chews the bone on the bed that they have. You'll notice the adults, the veterans, just go right back to chewing their bones. They're like, okay, cool. She's going to handle him by the same rules. Life is good. And what I start to teach them is that they are going to be calm around each other. So good place bed work where they're calm around each other. I'll have my puppy in a behavioral down, which is something we do on leash to help the puppy relax. And I might have an adult in the room hanging out with me and calm. And I also do a lot of work with ExerPens. I'll show a video of that in a moment. And what's cool about that is the puppy can be chill in their ExerPen with their toys and things, and actually not even really think about the adult dogs moving around the room. And then when I move them to play, I like to teach my dogs that there's really no play in the house. It's like an old Brady Bunch, don't play ball in the house was Mrs. Brady. And they didn't listen and they played ball in the house, and I think a lamp or something got broken. So we don't play ball in the house. What we do is we make sure that we teach play outside. And so generally, again, I will tend to use little spray bottles so I can manage play. Again, also my adults understand my rules. If I say easy, they take the level down. If I call them to me because too much of a chase game is going on, I'm worried about somebody getting hurt, they come to me and they settle for a moment and they trust that I'm gonna, keep the puppy from jumping on them or biting them too hard. So that's my way of introducing puppy to the older dogs. I also really feel like this is a moment I need to take to remind or to teach families that if you allow too much interaction, what'll happen is your puppy will bond to your dogs and not to you. So I really do like for that first 6 to 12 months that they get 15-minute play sessions a couple times a day with the adults, with the older dogs in the house. But primarily, most of their play and most of their interaction comes with me. I get some one-on-one time with them to work with them and bond with them so that I am then more important than the other dogs in the house. And through doing that again goes back to helping me manage play and helping me keep their interactions safe. So just a little piece of advice there. I'm wondering if anyone else has questions. We've got a couple more here to answer. I'm not necessarily seeing any pop in on the stream. You're more than welcome to toss a question or two in on the stream, guys, if you want. Let's see. Okay. Looking for questions. Okay. Let's see. What are your best tips for housebreaking a puppy? Consistency. Get to know their schedule. There's a great book out by Patricia McConnell called Way to Go, How to House Train a Dog of Any Age. I highly recommend that the puppy parents that take classes with me read that book. But it is about schedule. It is about utilizing your crate and your ExerPen correctly to make sure that they don't have the opportunity to have an accident when you're not watching. Because remember, it can just be an accident, so to speak. But for me, how do I want to say this? For me, I want my dogs in my line of visual, right? Like I want to keep an eye on them, because if they have an accident here or there in the house, they learn that it's then possible to do, right? But for me, if I'm able to get them on the right schedule and teach them what door we're going out of, and for the first year of their life, they never have an accident in the house, guess what? I never have to worry about it becoming a habit, right? So it's a lot of the potty training stuff, the housebreaking stuff happens to be schedule, get to know their schedule, how soon after eating, how soon after drinking, monitor their water intake, right? Don't free feed. Either, like, I have my puppy parents in classes feed from their hand, but make sure that you're giving meal times, or you're aware of when you're using food to train so that you know when they may have to go. Get to know their signs. Watch them carefully. Do they start to circle or pace? Do they move towards the door that you've been taking them out of? Like, all of those things for housebreaking a puppy. And then what I do is when I take them outside, I have them on a long line, like a 10-foot leash, and I go to one area of the yard and I stand there and I wait for them to do their business. When they do, I praise them and I'll give them a piece of food reward in the early stages. And after maybe a week or so, I don't do that every time. They might get a piece of food every third time out, because if you do it too much, then you get the puppy that sometimes wants you to take them out just so they'll get food. So watch that as well, right? We never know how some of our dogs can be very creative, our puppies. The other thing is to understand what is rewarding to the puppy. So if you have a puppy that likes to be outside and explore, and you take them out to do their business, and as soon as they've done their business, you haul them back inside, you might find that they start delaying outside going to the bathroom because they want to explore first. So oftentimes I'll reward a puppy that goes to the bathroom if I know they like to be outside and play with me with, 3 to 5 minutes of play before I take them back inside. So be aware of those things too, but definitely get them on a schedule, use your crate, use your extra pen, keep them in your line of vision. If you baby gate them in the room you're in and you got to have 80% of your attention on them, really for the first 4 to 6 months. And then after that, about, 60% of your attention on them. And then, if they're handling a little bit of freedom well, you can start to press boundaries. But that's my advice for potty training a puppy. So how do you begin teaching commands, and when do you begin environmental conditioning? Well, I like to call them cues, and I start shaping and luring behaviors very young, right? So my puppies that are with me, I start shaping and luring behaviors as soon as I get them at 8 or 9 weeks old. Now, when do I put the verbal cue on? It depends, right? I generally don't name it until I like it for my sport dogs, right? Now, for the average pet client, though, if you take, like, say you're taking our puppy class, what we look for is when we first teach a behavior, say we're going to teach the behavior down, right? I want to make sure that we can capture that behavior consistently. So the puppy needs to respond to the lure within a second of the lure occurring. That puppy needs to get into a down position in order for me to say, okay, now it's good to start adding the verbal cue. Because if you add the verbal cue and the puppy takes 8 seconds to finally assume a down position after a lure, then guess what? They're not going to sync up the word and the behavior. So it's really about how well are they responding to lures or shaping of the behavior. And then once they have it, I put the word to it. So generally in our puppy classes, we spend a week or two luring a behavior, and then we clear our clients to add the verbal cues ahead of the lure or captured behavior. And then environmental conditioning, I start that very, very young. So environmental conditioning, I like to take a puppy at 9 weeks old and get them, like, I'll take them to a kids park when there's really nothing going on, to try to go at an off time and do that. I'll put a baby pool out in the yard with bottles in it, and I'll toss food in it and let them hop in there and have fun with that. I'll get the Fit Paws equipment out and just let them start walking around on it, and just layering all that with food and toys. So I like to do that stuff very young. And then also if they're in a fear period, when that fear period kicks in 5 to 7 months, 6 to 8 months, I generally don't press anything new during that time. When I notice their fear period occurring, I will generally just keep them doing things they've been enjoying and wait to add anything new until after I see them come out of that fear period. So there's that. We have another good question here. Lots of puppy parents use puppy pads, yay or nay? Definitely nay. Why? Because you generally have to fade them out. So I've never been a puppy pad person that is like, okay, let's do it. Now, does that mean that there wouldn't be an outlier? Might I not have an elderly client that can't get outside? And if they have a little tiny breed dog like a Bichon, is it okay for them to teach the Bichon to go on the pad and just toss the pad out? Could I see myself doing that? Potentially, yes, in those very targeted situations. But in general, for the average puppy and the average human parent or owner, I think that they're overused. I've never found a need for them. Here's another one. Karen, how can you correct two dogs playing too rough? Well, I manage play, right? I interrupt the play. So generally, when I allow two dogs to play together, it's because I have at least very good control of one of them. So if play starts getting rough, I can call the one over to me, and generally that makes it very easy for me to settle both dogs down and say, hey, chill out. That said, I will also use a spray bottle. Just put it on stream. A spray bottle can reach for 12 to 15 feet, right? And generally, if you kind of graze the back of an ear or something, they go, hey, what was that? And in that amount of time, you've kind of taken down the energy a little bit. And then, from there, it depends on also the age of the dogs. And if I'm really worried about one dog flipping into acting more aggressively, I'm going to be instituting a few other things. Like I might put vinegar in the bottle instead of water, stuff like that. If I'm also concerned about a particular dog, I might have them muzzled in the early stages of play. I definitely would have a long line on them, so I can also handle that. But if we're talking about just two rambunctious dogs that have no aggression issues and they're just getting too rough, I make sure that I have a good recall on one of them. Yeah, and then I have a spray bottle for backup. Okay, what are your best tips for separation anxiety with a puppy? How long does it typically take for them to adjust? Oh, that's a great question. There's a lot of it depends there too. So first of all, remember that when you take a puppy home, they might cry that first night. And the biggest mistake anyone can make when they cry that first night is to take them out of the crate. Because then they learn that crying gets them out of the crate. And then from there, they've been reinforced, and it can be very difficult to switch that. And I think we also have to understand the difference between separation anxiety and just a little bit of normal, like kind of puppy crying or a little bit of a puppy tantrum, right? True separation anxiety is very rare. That said, if your puppy's behavior is more on the serious side, you can email me. There's a trainer named Mark Goldberg who has a wonderful protocol he calls the straw protocol, and I've had some clients utilize that. I also teach relaxation for puppies. If it's truly anxiety or they're struggling, I teach relaxation work, and then we actually transfer that to the crate, and we use remote feeders to reward the puppies for moving to more relaxed states. So that can be very helpful. Covering the crate can potentially be helpful. Putting a mild boundary on the behavior, if it's truly a tantrum, can be valuable as well, depending on what's going on. And how long does it typically take for them to adjust? If it's a puppy that's just having a normal kind of puppy crying from their first day away from their litter mates, generally, if you don't get in there and get involved and you just let them handle it that night, they adjust within a couple days. Now, if it's something more serious, it can take a couple of weeks, but you've got to be setting them up for success. So, I mean, if you're really struggling with that, definitely email us and we can set up some lessons and coach you through it. It's very coachable. So hopefully that helps you with that question. Let's see. I mentioned ExerPens, right, a couple times. I want to show you the beauty of the ExerPen, by the way, and how this can be a very positive thing for puppy parents. So let's pull this. I've got 3 Exerpen videos, and I think they're very valuable to take a look at. So I'm going to do screen share. I love that we can screen share from this. Okay, so a little background on this. When Cademan came to my home, he was quite interesting little puppy in that he was the first puppy I had that would not settle with a marrow bone on a bed. Like I went and I gave him a marrow bone and he's like, nope, I want to flip the bed upside down. I want to pick up the rug and drag it. I want to take a chunk out of the arm of the sofa. Emma, you're welcome. I want to take a chunk out of the arm of the sofa. And I was like, dude, you're really something, Cademan. So what I did was, and this is his first session, was I put him, because he didn't care about any of the toys or anything, I put him in an Exerpen. All right, so you see this? And in the Exerpen, I put the bed and I put a bunch of toys. And finally, in that Exerpen with his options limited, he was willing to start to satisfy on the toy. You'll also notice that Aries had walked by and Cademan didn't get up or rush the Exerpen or anything, right? So because his options were limited, he learned to start to self-satisfy on the correct things, right? And so you see he's kind of getting up and shaking that bear around, and right, he got up and down from that crate. But what's really cool, if you watch, stick with me for a second here, that was his first session. Here's his second session in the Exerpen, and you'll start to see that he's even more settled just from one session to the next. Watch, I'll get this going. We're going to do a screen share on this. Here we go. Okay, so we've got Cademan Exerpen 2. So look at this. Little guy is in here, and look at this. I don't think he gets up at all in this video, right? Oops. Yep, you can see that, right? Oh, sorry. Wait, let me back that up.
Puppy Cademan.
There we go.
I love you.
Let me back it up for you. Okay, here we go. So he's not on the bed, but dude is chilled out, man. Right? Like he's not racing around,
Puppy
shaking the toy
Cademan.
up. He's actually starting to learn
I love you.
to satisfying this rope toy a little bit. So you see a puppy that's already started
Puppy
to self-satisfy
Cademan.
and self-soothe in a healthy way. And then the final one, this was really cool too. I'll put one more up for you guys, and then we'll get to our next question. This is really kind of cool. Exerpen 3. So this is his third session, I believe, third or fourth session. So let's go ahead and take a peek at this. You can just see the progression, right? All right. So now we got Mr. Man here, and here we go. Again, now he's on the bed and he's still satisfying on that rope toy, which is really cool, right? But I also want to show you something. I think the video pans in a moment and you'll see the other dogs. Yep. So Kellen's right there and Aries is right there, right? And Kellen has a bone that she's chewing, and the puppy's there. And again, this is another way that the puppy just learns to be calm in the presence of the adults in the room, right? So it's just very valuable. The Exerpen is such a valuable tool that I think can get quickly overlooked. People don't talk about it enough. Okay, so let's see if we have other questions coming in. All right, I have a question that is not a puppy question, but I'd said if we had time, I would answer it. And I'm going to go ahead and answer this. And I can still take a couple more puppy questions if any more come through. But there's a question from Barbara. Wrigley is a rescue about 2.5 years old. We have started basic obedience. He heels nicely, sits, and is up to 1 minute of a sit stay. He jumps a lot. For example, when people come in, or randomly he will start barking and will jump up on the chair or sofa we are sitting on. What's the best way to handle this? Well, again, to me, there's multifaceted things. So it's great that you're in a basic obedience class, but not all basic obedience classes are created the same. So if you're not learning some relaxation skills in that class, if you're not learning about balancing relationship in that class, then there's significantly more to the program. So, for instance, in our basic classes, we teach a relaxation exercise. We teach relational work that actually would affect the chair or the sofa that you're sitting on, right? So I would recommend starting to look at relationship and how you balance it. Get on a good relationship building um, protocol, and teach him that the chair or the sofa is not okay. Redirect him to a place bed. Go ahead, put his leash on. Do a behavioral down. Like, let him learn that you can redirect him to a different behavior and kind of put him in a timeout if he starts acting that way. When people come in, again, I don't know if at 2.5 years old, if he's got a fear reactivity going on, or if he's just happy to see them, or if there's even the worry of aggression. So it's very hard for me to answer that question without knowing a little bit more about the behavior, seeing video of it. If it's just a happy dog that's overexcited, I would put a boundary on the behavior. We have threshold work that we do. I teach threshold work, or I spray a boundary so they can't go rushing into the situation. And then I reward them for staying back. And then we also reward them for relaxing while people are coming through the door. And then again, redirecting them if they try to jump on the chair or sofa to a place bed or a behavioral down is really the way that I tend to go when it comes to redirect, when it comes to changing these behaviors. And again, if you have no control in those situations, then I probably would crate him, get people in, have them be calm. And once they're in and everything's calm, then you can let him out to have a little bit of an interaction. Again, using food to help through the situation, right? So I hope that helps. I'm thinking that that's good. If anyone has any other questions, I'll leave this up for like another minute or so, see if any other questions come in. If not, feel free. You can always email me, info@universityofdog.com, and we can answer questions that way. We can also help you get on the right path to good training. So feel free to reach out. I want to thank everyone that joined us. Everyone have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.